Welcome to the Manna at the Tap podcast. My name is Gloria, and I host this podcast, which offers us daily manna to feed the spiritual soul. We are on a journey through the season after Pentecost. This is the third week of the season. Today is Tuesday, June the 11th, 2024. And the lectionary text for today is 1 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 22. This is the history of how the tribal societies, with their independent units, experienced political and economic fusion as new patterns of power, wealth, and land control emerged. At the end of 1 Samuel chapter 7, the towns the Philistines had captured from Israel were restored to them. And Israel allied with the Amorites, who were already living in the land of Canaan before they arrived. And there was peace between them. That's what reminded me of First Nations people being here and Europeans coming in, and there would be peace between them. Not the situation, though. Samuel himself was an excellent model of a leader. And as a leader, he made a circuit around the towns as a judge, helping the people to resolve their issues. He was so unlike Eli, who never left Shiloh and did not seem involved with the people. When Samuel was old and could no longer guide the people, he appointed his two sons, Joel and Abijah, as the new leaders. However, the elders of Israel were not pleased with Samuel's sons because they did not follow his ways. They were almost as bad as Eli's sons. They were dishonest and accepted bribes and perverted justice. The elders of Israel were looking for a change in governance. So they gathered at Samuel's home, refusing his sons to lead them, and instead requested a king to govern them so they could be like the other nations. The elders wanted Samuel to choose a king from among them. This made Samuel very sad. And he probably agreed with the elders of Israel that his sons had not followed in his footsteps. But one wonders how Samuel felt about the behavior of his sons in light of what he saw between Eli and his sons. This is an interesting thing I noticed today. The lectionary text sits between Mother's Day and Father's Day. Interestingly, Hannah was a woman who prayed for a son, and as a mother, she spent the time teaching him how to worship the Lord. Eli, the father of two sons, would not correct them even though he was warned about their behavior. Maybe in Samuel's case, he was too busy caring for the people of Israel and neglected training his sons like his mother had done with him. Samuel was saddened at the request of the people for a king because he knew their request indicated a lack of faith in God. He must have felt like a failure himself as a father. And despite his best efforts, the people wanted to be led by a king so they could be like the other nations. God came to Samuel's aid, and God comforted him, telling him it was the people's decision. It was not Samuel they were rejecting. They were rejecting God. God called Samuel to lead the people, but his leadership was limited. He was now old, and new leadership was needed. Both Samuel and the people made decisions without seeking direction from God. He appointed his two sons, and they commanded a king. After some dialogue between Yahweh, Samuel, and the people, God told Samuel to listen to the voice of the people and all they are saying, and give them a king to lead them. The people had not anticipated any consequences for themselves or the generations after them. Freedom of choice necessitates an obligation. God also let go of his authority, but he gave them a stern warning. He reminded the people how he had provided for them in the past. They had forgotten how he had delivered them out of Egypt and from slavery. God told Samuel to warn them solemnly and tell them the repercussions of kingship on the nation. The king they wanted would reign over them and would claim them as his rights. Samuel outlined to the people the warning given by the Lord about the power a king would have over them. It was more than conscription and taxes. The real issue would be who the people wanted to put their trust in. Do they want an earthly king, or did they want to continue to trust in the God of covenant promises, deliverance, and blessings? It was clear the people did not want to listen to Samuel about how a king would reign over them and claim them as his right. And then he would take their children, their cattle, the produce of the land, and he would use it for his own benefit, and the people would become his slaves. Their misplaced trust and the consequences would eventually lead to them being exiled by powerful nations like the Babylonians and the Assyrians. And this would be a severe punishment for their disobedience. But the people insisted they still wanted a king over them so that they would be like all the other nations who had a king to lead them and to go out before them and fight their battles. The warnings given by God did not take place immediately. It would take the kingship of Solomon before these warnings would become true. But God used kingship to execute his own will, beginning with the teenage son of Jesse, King David. And he was chosen and anointed by Samuel. God demonstrated his power of grace by allowing the people to make a poor decision of choosing their king. And God would redeem his people from above many generations later through the coming of Jesus of Nazareth.